What's the difference between apparent, evident and obvious? I believe they are all the same, but is there any case in which not all of them are correct? Here are the examples, from an English textbook. 1. It is quite, underscore that he took the wrong path. A. Apparent B. Evident C. Stupid D. Absurd 2. It is underscore that 2 and 2 make 4. A. Apparent B. Evident C. Obvious D. Visible 3. It is underscore that you have been cheated. A. Clear B. Apparent C. Regretful D. Ignorant. The answers are B, C, and A. I think A is also a correct answer to Q1, A and B are also correct answers to Q2, and B is also a correct answer to Q3. It is not that easy when it comes to answering questions in an exam, because there is only one answer I can choose, and if I'm wrong, I lose points. So, is it really wrong to use the other words in these cases? Why?
A look in a decent dictionary should answer this. Apparent is direct, think of appear. You can see it is so. You cannot see David tilde, it is apparent that David is not here. Evident is indirect, think of evidence. David did not sign in and nobody saw him tilde, evidently David was not here. Obvious is something that is clearly true. You cannot see David in the room tilde, David is obviously not in this room.
The word obvious should be reserved for things that are patently obvious, like, you obviously have a nose. Obvious works best when it is evident to the mind or logically apparent. The word comes from the Latin via, which means way. You apparently have a nose. By the looks of it, you do. Apparent works best when the thing literally appears in sight. That's the Latin meaning at least.
In this case, I should not be too surprised about your nose being visible, and because of that, the second sentence carries sarcastic overtones, more so than the first.
You evidently have a nose.
If our language was logical, it would be good form to use evidently with some evidence.
There is no reason to believe you should obviously have a nose. But, I have a paper here that says that you do have one. Apparently, your face is completely flat. But evidently, you have a nose. However, that meaning of evidently is evidently obsolete, according to the Oxford English Dictionary.
Evident and apparent are close synonyms, without much differentiation in modern usage. A quick Google N-gram comparison shows that evident, which used to be the most popular of the three, became the least popular in the 1930s. All three are frequently suspect as weasel words, meaningless and used when things are neither apparent, evident, or obvious.
Trickiest is apparent or apparently. These are used whether something appears to be the case at first sight or on the surface, superficially, but in fact you are inclined to doubt it, that is you suspect that in truth it is not the case. In a sense such statements are weak assertions, but there is a negative strength due to the dubious overtones, you are expressing doubt. Intermediate is evident or evidently. These imply that you have some evidence that something is the case and in fact you are inclined to believe it, that is you suspect that in truth the assertion holds. In a sense such statements are stronger assertions, but there is a negativity due to deliberately opening the statement up for contradiction by further evidence. Stronger still is obvious or obviously. These imply that there is little room for doubt. Nonetheless, the fact that something is thought obvious, even by a great many people, does not mean that it is actually true. In science, or linguistics, we often take the obvious and try to formally prove or disprove it. Sometimes we find that the obvious is false, or only a first approximation, and a new theory supplants the old. Or putting it another way, we start to believe theories that are very non-obvious or counterintuitive. Think relativity, quantum mechanics, round Earth, Earth going round the Sun. Words and sentences are concepts in linguistics that do not have an obvious definition that survives across languages. To add another case, supposed or supposedly, imply that something is thought to be the case and leaves room for doubt, with the s pronounced /z/, but trickily supposed to can mean that something should be the case, is expected to be the case, or is meant to be the case, with the s pronounced /s/. Here we have two different connotations depending on whether we pronounce it with a voiced or unvoiced sibilant, /s/ or /z/. she was supposed to have killed him, has two different meanings depending on how you pronounce it. Regarding the test and dropping the brackets, since those words make a difference, it is quite underscore that he took the wrong path. A. Apparent, B. Evident, C. Stupid, D. Absurd. A. You would say, apparently he took the wrong path. B. Most likely, especially with quite, implying looking at evidence. C. Not so good in a passive context, he is stupid for taking the wrong path. D. Not so good, it is quite absurd to think that he took the wrong path. It is underscore that 2 and 2 make 4. A. Apparent, B. Evident, C. Obvious, D. Visible. A and B are unlikely as it is not something you normally see or need evidence for. C is most likely. Obvious might occur with a diagram but are still awkward. This diagram makes visible the obvious and self-evident fact that 2 and plus 2 makes 4. It is underscore that you have been cheated. A. Clear, B. Apparent, C. Regretful, D. Ignorant. A is most likely, passing a judgment based on the evidence, evidently would work. B would be possible but less definite, but again given the judgment isn't final yet would be more likely stated as, apparently you have been cheated. C would be stated as, it is regrettable that you have been cheated. Or in an active form. D would be more like, you are plain ignorant if you think that you have been cheated.
It is quite underscore that he took the wrong path. A. Apparent, B. Evident, C. Stupid, D. Absurd. 2.it is underscore that 2 and 2 make 4. A. Apparent, B. Evident, C. Obvious, D. Visible. 3.it is underscore that you have been cheated. A. Clear, B. Apparent, C. Regretful, D. Ignorant, and the answers are B, C, A. I agree with these as being the correct answers, by far the best, although the alternatives are reasonable and in some cases only ring slight bells of warning. It is however very hard to explain why, as it is a matter of idiom, or patterns we are used to. But here goes. Apparent would mean it is, patently, clear, in this case the fundamental meaning that it appears in front of you rather than the less literal meaning in the sense of appearances can be deceptive. That it is evident rather than apparent follows from the proposal being passed and not something that is visible now, whether deceptive or not. Stupid and absurd are not quite the correct/complete construction. It is stupid of him to have taken the wrong path. It is stupid to think that he took the wrong path. It is absurd to think that he would have taken the wrong path. Apparent would mean there is room for doubt, and opportunity is being provided to argue or disprove. Evident also means there is some evidence and a conclusion has been drawn, although self-evident, like obvious, could be used to indicate that no evidence is needed other than seeing, and counting what is as obvious as, indeed part of, the hand in front of your face. Apparent would mean there is room for doubt, and I would expect A but to follow. Clear, or obvious, is much more certain and doesn't have the same degree of expectation that you will go on to further explore the truth of the matter. Then regretful should be regrettable, and ignorant doesn't fit either with the third person or the that clause. He is ignorant about your being cheated, etc. The only alternative other than the specified correct answer that is plausible is 3B, and that just doesn't sound finished.
If you want to support the channel, please consider subscribing.